A few years ago, I made a video about how Majora's Mask felt like an existential crisis, comparing the time loop to how it felt to be stuck in lockdown, the feeling of mundanity repeating. A line I said in that video was that I could make a piece on Majora's Mask every year about different things, on how it related to my current state of being. Now, obviously I haven't done that, but something did strike me enough to make a video about this game again, and that is its relationship with death. Death is something I think about a lot. It's my greatest fear despite being the most guaranteed thing in life. My thoughts, my anxieties, and my feelings about it will never change that fact. I've never talked to anyone about this, nor have I ever heard anyone mention it, so I don't know if this is an anxiety-riddled thought fueled by my greatest fear creeping through, or it's something we all subconsciously think about while playing games. But whenever I kill an enemy or a character dies, I usually think, that is not how I want to go. It's a jarring thought to have, disconnecting myself from a moment to put me at the center of it when I shouldn't be the focal point, an accidentally selfish way to experience a game. The way video games treat death has always been weird to me. In the vast majority of cases, it's a progress condition. If you die, you can't proceed, but if you kill, you can. Even in games that deal with loss and tragedy as a central theme, you can find yourself mowing down endless swarms of enemies. Killing in games is a celebratory thing. There are cutscenes dedicated to how good it is that you've done it, Mortal Kombat fatalities, bullet time finisher sequences, and on the opposite side of the coin, playable character deaths can have full cutscenes dedicated to them, even to the point the Callisto Protocol made DLC out of unlocking new gory deaths for players to see. The idea of taking life to progress with simple inputs is something that's so prevalent in games that it's hard to take a step back and realize just how desensitizing it can be. Do I have any real deep-rooted problem with this? Not really. There's a lot of catharsis or just plain dumb fun to be had with this gameplay style, but it's weird when you stop to think about it. Usually when a game deals with death in its central story or themes, it focuses itself on grief, which makes a lot of sense. Grief is the most natural reaction when someone passes away, but what I don't see nearly as often is the actual fear of death, the one that occupies way too much of my anxious brain space that it can prevent me from living. One game that did do this, however, is What Remains of Edith Finch. Edith Finch's story revolves around a family curse that causes anyone whose roots lead back to the family tree to die an untimely death. One of those family members' stories felt more relatable to me than I care to admit, that being Walter Finch's. After witnessing the death of his sister Barbara, Walter hid from the family curse in a bunker for 30 years. He lived the same day every day the entire time, 10,957 days in a row, eating nothing but canned peaches, and sitting in a room that may as well have been an early coffin avoiding the looming threat of death. The real tragedy here is that Walter is no longer living. Instead, he put himself in stasis. He let his fear of death stop him from experiencing life. Then, in an ironic twist of fate, as Walter is walking out of the bunker for the first time in 3 decades, as he is saying he doesn't care if he only makes it a week, a month, or a year, he is just happy to be living his life, a train runs him over. He spent a lifetime in isolation only to live again for mere minutes. This is something I personally have dealt with on a much smaller and more realistic scale. I've spent days and sometimes weeks inside thinking I'm avoiding death when in reality I'm missing out on life, hoping to avoid that train coming out of nowhere. In my yearly playthrough of Majora's Mask, I couldn't help but see this idea everywhere I looked. Obviously, Walter's tragedy isn't a one-to-one with Majora's Mask, but the parallels are there. The same 3 days are repeating, but instead of doing the same thing over and over again, you do different things. It's like the inverse if Walter was stuck and wanted to get out, instead of being trapped in a hell of his own creation. And since it's a full game, not just a vignette of a larger narrative, Majora's Mask managed to not only tap into my deep anxiety of being trapped, it also dug into other death anxieties I have that I never noticed before that now I can't help but think about non-stop, even weeks after beating the game for a number of times I've long since lost count of. Majora's Mask's connection to Ocarina of Time is so deeply ambiguous, the amount of interpretation it's open to has led to countless fan theories and ideas as to what's actually happening, and where Termina actually is. This is why the legacy of the game is so strong. It's one made to be discussed and debated about endlessly. The only thing we know for sure is that after Navi leaves at the end of Ocarina, Link sets off into the woods to find her, which is when he runs into Skull Kid only to have his ocarina and horse stolen. These two events that set the game into motion have led many in the fanbase to believe Link dies in pursuit of Skull Kid. Others believe it's a parallel universe. This time around though, it felt like something new. I don't think Link is dead, but instead he's in mourning. The end of his adventure in Ocarina of Time is extremely traumatic. He has to say goodbye to his adult life, a life he spent saving people only to be taken away from it. He loses his childhood innocence, not only from a heroic call to action, but from spending time as a grown-up that isn't something he can just forget. He also loses the love of those who understood what happened to him. And to top it all off, he loses his best friend. There's this weird thing with grief. No matter how many friends I lose, and unfortunately I can no longer count the number on both hands, they still stay with me. I keep seeing my dead friends on the faces of strangers, a bittersweet reminder of the times we had and the time we've lost. I've moved across multiple cities, and no matter what, they still manage to keep finding me. The dead don't truly rest as long as you remember them. And I want to remember them. I want to celebrate the beautiful lives they had, but I also don't want to see them when I least expect it. While I walk down the road to buy something to eat, my mind couldn't be further from their memory, and yet there they are. I can never tell if it's a haunting or a hello. I often wonder if people will see me after I'm gone on the faces of strangers as they walk down the road. These losses are reflected perfectly in the dead whose identity Link takes on. Usually we wear metaphorical masks to hide our pain from others, but here they're worn to boldly assume the role of those that should be gone. The unnamed Deku Scrub child who was an unfortunate casualty of Skull Kid's meddling, an innocent bystander who has his young life ripped away from him, a world lost an innocent soul. Darmani, a fallen soldier who died protecting his people and his village from an unknown source of rage. The world lost a soldier they could rely on. Mikau, the musician and lover to Lulu, who has fallen silent in his and their implied children's absence. The world lost a lover. Although no longer being of this earth is the biggest reason I fear death, something else that it has to do with is leaving things unfinished. It's an impossible task, tying off all these possible loose threads. But at the very least, Link manages to face 3 very important tragedies that happened to him when he was sent back in time. By wearing the faces of others, by taking on their masks and finishing their legacies, or providing closure to their loved ones, he can begin the process of healing. However, the main thing that seems in need of closure the most, the one thing that the entire game circles around endlessly, is that of lost friendship. In my life, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've isolated people I cared about based on self-doubt and insecurity, sometimes self-destructive and sometimes deserved to those who did wrong by me. But one thing that scares the hell out of me is dying knowing those things were never reconciled. And while I've done some work to fix many of them, a lot of relationships are still left unresolved. When you first find Tail on top of the clock tower on the first cycle before you get your ocarina back, he mentions the 4. In the swamp, the mountains, the sea, and the canyon. You must bring them here. As it turns out, these are the 4 giants, the 4 friends that Skull Kid betrays because of his own insecurity, his own self-doubt.
Call us.
If you have the All Night Mask and get Andrew's grandmother to tell you a story, one of the 2 is that of the 4 giants and the imp. The giants and the imp all lived together in harmony, but as the world grew and things began to change, the giants needed to stay in their own corners of the world, tending to them individually. This left the imp alone, and as he grew more isolated, he grew angrier and angrier.
Help our friend.
This idea of people moving on and finding their own lives, starting their own families, carving out their own center of the world for themselves is one that I'm sure is relatable to a lot of people. It certainly is to me. It can feel deeply personal to get left behind, and if you don't have the self-assurance to deal with it, it can leave you bitter and jaded. That feeling is the driving force of Majora's Mask. It's a lashing out for feeling abandoned that's taken out on the city of Termina. It's the inverse to how Link takes on the personas of dead strangers to save the land. Instead, Skull Kid traps his only friends behind the faces of monsters to doom it.
Forgive your friend.
Strained relationships is a thematic foundation of Majora's Mask. It's Link's call to action. It's tied to the longest quest in the game, Anju and Cafes, and it's the original motivation of Skull Kid. But one area that is tied more to this idea than any other is Ikana Canyon. Everywhere you look, you will find relationships in trouble. The reason the area is inhabited by the Walking Dead is the result of a war, a frayed diplomatic relationship. The brothers Sharp and Flat have become estranged after Sharp sold his soul to the devil after the land was lost in the war. In retaliation, Sharp cursed the land and stopped the flow of water. After rescuing Flat, he gives Link the Song of Storms, a song he composed specifically to heal his brother. What's interesting about reconciling this relationship between 2 brothers is that if you play the Song of Healing to Sharp, he simply says the song is soothing and then goes on to continue to hurt Link. It isn't enough. This isn't someone who is okay with their death and wants to move on like the others you play the song for. He needs to be appeased before he is willing to accept. The curse is is too strong. So the Song of Storms composed by Flat both cures his curse and convinces him it's okay for this ghost to pass. However, the most profound quote, one that hit me in a way it never has before, maybe because I'm a lot older now with many friendships left in the distance, comes from the most unlikely place, the Ikana King, Egos to Ikana. He says,
"Believing in your friends and embracing that belief by forgiving failure. These feelings have vanished from our hearts."
This one moment completely recontextualized Majora's Mask for me. It made it make a kind of sense it hasn't before. The fallen king of Ikana has seen a lot. He's seen in his land alone friendships get torn asunder. Maybe he lives with the regret that he saw his friend Captain Kida fall under his command. A sense of longing to reach out, knowing he can't do so. Not to mention it reflecting greatly on the Skull Kid and the Giants. They're willing to forgive him, and they desperately want Tattle and Tail to do the same. It's a plea to not wait until you're dead to realize how easy it can be to rekindle friendships. To do so before it's too late. Putting your estranged friends behind the faces of something detestable. Putting them behind a different persona to make hating them easier. You could put this down to the malice of Majora, seeping in and locking away the only things that could stop its destruction. But I'd argue the power gained from wearing the evil mask just amplifies the feeling Skull Kid has towards his old friends, both using each other for their own separate game. You can see this all through the game, but it's most prominent when you beat a dungeon. In order to stop the moon, you must summon the 4 giants. Reconciling these relationships was oddly cathartic for me, seeing the end of the world coming, an inevitable death, but the way to stop it was by fixing friendships, projecting one of my biggest anxieties around my greatest fear. It made it feel possible in my life. Maybe I can one day fix those friendships, and hopefully it's not on my deathbed. These feelings are met with constant doubt, however, and that's another thing Majora's Mask touches on.
Your friends, what kind of people are they? I wonder, do these people think of you as a friend?
When you finally make it to the moon and meet the children of the moon, they ask you profound questions about friendship.
What makes you happy? I wonder, what makes you happy? Does it make others happy too?
They question what it means to be a good person.
The right thing. What is it? I wonder. If you do the right thing, does it really make everyone happy?
Can you be a good person with a slew of failed relationships and friendships?
Your true face. What kind of face is it? I wonder. The face under the mask. Is that your true face?
These are questions that can't be answered by a game for me, but it did open the door for me to think about. Can I fix things before it's too late? Before I'm a spirit left wandering with regret. Ghosts spend an eternity with things they never did. I have a chance, they don't. At this point in time, it's not really a secret my struggle with mental health and dark thoughts. If you've seen any number of my videos, it's a topic I try hard not to shy away from. It's important to me that it's talked about, not just by me, but by everyone. But a fear of death makes these struggles an eternal battle in my head. What does it mean when you don't want to be alive anymore, but you're so terrified of dying you can't do anything about it? I find myself just sitting, turning to stone in my room waiting for it to pass. We don't get to choose what we're afraid of. At least I believe so. But for those cold 3 a.m. mornings sitting in my bed waiting for these feelings to pass, I'm grateful for my fear of death. Maybe it's not so bad. I shouldn't let it control me, but I'm here because of it. More than anything though, this is a game built on making permanence out of a world that is trying to be impermanent. The 3-day cycle constantly wants to reset your progress, but there are ways around it. When routine bites hard and life feels purposeless, there are things you can cling on to, progress that can be made despite it all. Every frayed relationship is left with a marker of progress. No matter what, those giants won't be trapped in the masks of evil spirits again. Even if Andrew and Cafe's relationship is set back to estranged, you have a marker that at one point you made things right and you know what that looks like. You know it can be done. That's something that made me understand death a little bit more. I can't stop it. It's my mark of impermanence. But I can leave permanent marks on the world despite that. I can leave people with memories and ideas that are held forever. And ultimately, I think that's what we all want, to be remembered. I don't think I'll stop seeing the faces of my friends on strangers. But maybe now I can see them as friendly reminders rather than hauntings. A reminder of the good times rather than the guilt of the mistakes I never got to reconcile.
Whenever there is a meeting, a parting shall follow. But that parting needs not last forever. Whether a parting be forever or merely for a short while, that is up to you.
Majora's Mask, or any game for that matter, can't make me feel better about death. That's something I have to live with myself. But it is comforting to know that there is a piece of media out there that's so easily accessible to me that if I ever need reassurance that these anxieties aren't mine alone, it's there to be picked up and played whenever I need it.
Time, cruel and fearful, a swamp where one is about to be executed for a crime he did not commit, a mountain where a leader is powerless to save his people, a sea where a fallen musician can only lament his failure, a valley where the ghosts of the past still fight a war that has long since ended, a town caught between it all, where the end begins, and one boy, a hero, with all the time in the world, and no time at all, to save this world.